The grand ballroom of the Willow Creek Manor glittered under crystal chandeliers, their light dancing like fireflies on the polished marble floors. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, a symphony of wealth and whispered secrets among the town's elite. It was the annual Harvest Gala, a night where silk gowns swirled and tuxedos gleamed. But for Olivia Harper, it was a cruel spotlight on her isolation. She sat alone at a corner table, her simple black dress, a borrowed hand-me-down from her aunt, clinging awkwardly to her frame. The other women, dripping in jewels and designer labels, had glanced her way earlier, their eyes narrowing in judgment. Olivia wasn't one of them. She was the maid who cleaned their mansions by day, scrubbing floors and polishing silver while they sipped champagne. Now, invited out of pity by her employer's wife, she was the outsider, the joke. The snickers started subtly, a ripple across the room. A cluster of young socialites near the punch bowl pointed, their manicured hands covering smirks. "Look at her," one whispered loud enough to carry. "Thinks she's Cinderella," but forgot the glass slipper. Another laughed, a sharp, tinkling sound that cut through the music. Olivia's cheeks burned, her hands twisting in her lap as she stared at the untouched plate of hors d'oeuvres before her. She had come hoping for a moment of escape, a breath of normalcy after long shifts that left her bones aching, but the weight of their mockery pressed down, reminding her of the invisible lines that kept her in her place. No one approached her table. No one offered a dance or a kind word. She was a shadow in their light, forgotten before the night had even begun. Then the rumble cut through the elegance like thunder rolling over a calm sea. It started faint, vibrating through the floorboards, growing into a low growl that silenced the orchestra mid-note. Heads turned toward the tall glass doors at the far end of the hall, where headlights pierced the night outside. A single motorcycle pulled up, its engine snarling defiantly against the valet's polished world. The rider dismounted with a fluid grace, his leather jacket scarred from years of road-worn battles, boots thudding heavily on the gravel path. Ethan Caldwell, a man whose name carried whispers of old wars and unbreakable oaths, strode through the doors without invitation. At 42, he was a relic of rougher times. Broad shoulders etched with tattoos of faded promises, a face lined by losses that no amount of wind could erase. His dark hair was tied back, and his eyes, sharp as desert hawks, scanned the room with quiet intensity. The crowd parted instinctively, murmurs rippling like wind through dry grass. Ethan wasn't dressed for this. His jeans were faded, his shirt untucked, smelling faintly of engine oil and open highways. He had ridden in from the outskirts, drawn by a chance encounter earlier that day. Olivia's employer, a smug real estate tycoon named Harlan Voss, boasting at the local diner about his charity invite to the Maid. Ethan had overheard, the words twisting something deep in his gut, a reminder of his own broken vows from a life left behind. He moved through the throng, ignoring the stares, his gaze locking on the lone figure at the corner table. Olivia looked up, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion as he approached. The laughter died abruptly, the socialites froze, their champagne flutes hovering mid-air. Without a word, Ethan extended his calloused hand, the one bearing a silver ring engraved with the emblem of his old crew. The Iron Vow, a brotherhood forged in the fires of forgotten battles. "Dance with me," he said, his voice low and steady, carrying the gravel of 1,000 miles. Olivia hesitated, glancing at the sea of judgmental faces, but something in his eyes, raw, unyielding honor, pulled her to her feet. She placed her trembling hand in his, and as he led her to the center of the floor, the orchestra struck up a slow waltz, as if on cue from some unseen director. The room watched in stunned silence as Ethan, this outsider on 2 wheels, took her in his arms. But he didn't just dance. In a move that hushed the entire gala, he dropped to one knee before her, still holding her hand, his head bowed slightly in a gesture of profound respect. Gasps echoed around them. Harlan Voss, red-faced from the bar, stormed forward, his voice booming. "What is this nonsense? Security!" But Ethan didn't rise. He looked up at Olivia, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "I made a promise once long ago to stand for those the world forgets, to the lost, the overlooked. You're not alone tonight, ma'am, not while I draw breath." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of old scars, Ethan's own past, haunted by the death of his sister in a system that failed her. A vow to his fallen comrades in the iron vow that justice wasn't bought with money or status, but earned through loyalty. Olivia's eyes filled with tears, not of shame, but of a spark long dimmed. In that kneel, he wasn't just a biker. He was a guardian of forgotten honor, pulling her from the shadows into the light. The gala teetered on the edge of uproar. Voss's men, burly types in ill-fitting suits, advanced, but Ethan's presence alone halted them. Whispers spread. Who was this man? Rumors of his crew, the Iron Vow, a band of riders who upheld moral codes in a corrupt town, intervening in injustices, from evictions to silenced voices. Olivia stood taller now, her hand still in his, as the music swelled. The laughter had turned to awe, the elite shifting uncomfortably under the gaze of true integrity. Ethan rose slowly, leading her in a gentle turn, the scent of leather and night air mingling with the room's perfume. Outside, the distant hum of more engines hinted at shadows gathering, his brothers, ready if the night turned sour. As the dance ended, applause broke out tentatively, then thunderous, from those who saw the poetry in the moment. Voss retreated, fuming, but the damage was done. The facade of their world cracked. Olivia whispered her thanks, her voice barely audible over the fading notes. "Why me?" Ethan smiled faintly, the lines around his eyes softening. "Because promises don't expire, and some fights are worth starting with a single step." He escorted her back to her table, but the night had changed. Word would spread by dawn of the biker who knelt for the Maid, igniting a chain of events that would test loyalties, unearth buried secrets, and remind a town that true power lay not in wealth, but in the quiet strength of standing for the forgotten. Yet, as Ethan stepped toward the doors, his phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from an old contact, pulling him into deeper shadows. Voss's corruption ran deeper than gala snubs. It tangled with threats to the vulnerable, echoes of Ethan's past losses. The ride home would be the beginning, not the end. The dust of the highway called, carrying the weight of a new vow. The night air outside Willow Creek Manor hung heavy with the scent of rain-kissed earth and distant pine, a stark contrast to the cloying perfumes trapped within the ballroom. Ethan Caldwell swung his leg over the saddle of his weathered Harley, the engine coughing to life with a throaty roar that echoed off the manicured lawns. His mind replayed the moment, Olivia's hand in his, the hush falling over the gala like a curtain dropping on a stage of pretense. But the buzz in his pocket pulled him back, the message from Jax, his old war buddy and second-in-command of the Iron Vow, glowing on the cracked screen. "Voss ain't just a snob. He's squeezing the help, evictions, threats, ties to that mill closure last year. Your sister's old case smells like it. Ride careful." Ethan's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather of his gloves creaking. His sister, Lena, gone 5 years now. Her life snuffed out in a web of corporate greed and indifferent cops. She'd been a cleaner too, like Olivia, fighting for fair wages until Voss's kind buried her complaints under paperwork and payoffs. The vow he'd sworn over her grave, etched into the ring on his finger, burned anew. Protect the overlooked, honor the broken promises of a system that chewed up the weak. He revved the throttle, tires kicking up gravel as he peeled away from the manor, the taillights slicing through the dark like a promise kept. miles blurred under the moon's pale gaze, the highway a ribbon of black asphalt flanked by whispering fields. Ethan's thoughts drifted to the crew, waiting at the old barn on the town's edge. The Iron Vow, a patchwork family of riders who'd traded battlefield scars for road-worn ones. Jax, with his prosthetic leg from their service days. Maria, the sharp-eyed mechanic who'd patched more than engines after losing her brother to the same corruption. And the others, ghosts of oaths sworn in foxholes and dive bars. They'd disbanded once after the mill scandal fractured them. But Ethan's call tonight had stirred the embers. If Voss was at the heart of it, dragging innocence like Olivia into the shadows, the vow would ride again. By the time he pulled into the barn's dirt lot, the first hints of dawn streaked the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. The structure loomed like a sentinel, its weathered beams sagging under years of secrets. Headlights flickered in the distance, Jax arriving on his customized chopper, followed by a few others, their bikes forming a loose semicircle under the floodlights. Ethan killed the engine and dismounted, the crunch of boots on gravel announcing him. Jax swung off his ride, his face a map of stubble and skepticism, the Iron Vow patch on his vest catching the light, a clenched fist around a broken chain, symbol of bonds that time couldn't sever. "You look like hell, brother," Jax said, clapping Ethan's shoulder with a grip that spoke of shared foxholes. His voice carried the gravel of too many smokes and unspoken griefs. "Heard about the gala stunt? Kneeling for the Maid? That's gonna stir the hornet's nest." Ethan nodded, leaning against his bike as the others gathered. 5 riders now, engines ticking cool in the chill air. Maria wiped grease from her hands on a rag, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, eyes sharp as she sized him up. "Stunt? That's Ethan, always picking fights with the high and mighties. But Voss? He's got pull, cops on payroll, judges in his pocket. What's the play?" The group settled around a makeshift fire pit, flames crackling in an old barrel, casting flickering shadows that danced like uneasy spirits. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing the message. "Overheard him today at the diner, bragging about charity for his maid, but it's a front. Olivia's just the start. My sister's file, Lena's, mentioned Voss's company pushing out workers, falsifying reports. Closed that mill to dodge safety fines, left families homeless. Olivia cleans for him, bet she's seen things, heard whispers." Murmurs rippled through the circle. One rider, a burly vet named Lucas, spat into the dirt. "Saw it myself. My cousin worked the line, coughing up black from the dust. Voss called it progress. Progress my arse." The fire popped, sending sparks skyward, mirroring the tension coiling in their chests. These weren't men of flash. They were the quiet enforcers of moral reckonings, bound by a code older than the roads they rode. Ethan's voice dropped, steady as the horizon. "We ride for the forgotten. That's the vow. Olivia stood tall tonight because someone did, but if Voss is circling her, us, we expose him. No guns, no brawls, just truth. Dig into the mill records, talk to the old workers, show the town what honor looks like when the suits turn blind." Jax leaned forward, the firelight etching lines deeper into his face. "Risky. Last time we poked the bear, we lost Tommy, pushed off the road. Accident." The name hung heavy, a ghost in the smoke. Tommy, their heart, gone in a skid of oily lies. Ethan's jaw clenched, the memory a knife twist. "That's why we do it right this time. For Tommy, for Lena, for her." He jerked his head toward the invisible manor, Olivia's face flashing in his mind, resilient yet fragile under the weight of unseen burdens. As the sun crested, gilding the barn's roof, the group rose, a silent pact sealing in the morning light. Bikes roared to life one by one, a convoy forming like thunderheads gathering. Ethan mounted up last, the vibration thrumming through him like a heartbeat. They split, some to the archives in the next town over, others to the back alleys where evicted families huddled. But Ethan headed back toward Willow Creek, drawn by an instinct sharper than steel. Olivia's shift at Voss's estate started soon. He'd watch from the shadows, ensure the night's spark didn't fizzle into danger. The road curved through sun-dappled woods, the air alive with birdsong and the promise of confrontation. Unbeknownst to him, across town, Olivia woke in her cramped apartment above the laundromat, the gala's echo lingering like a dream. She touched her hand, still warm from his grasp, wondering at the biker who'd knelt, not in mockery, but in quiet revolution. A knock at her door startled her, a neighbor breathless with news of whispers circling Voss's circle. They say that rider's trouble. But girl, after last night, you're somebody now. As Ethan crested the hill overlooking the estate, a sleek black sedan idled at the gates, Voss's men, eyes scanning the horizon. The game had begun, promises clashing like engines in the dawn. Loyalty wasn't a word. It was the wind at his back, pushing him toward the storm. The vow rode on, threads of redemption weaving tighter, one silent stand at a time. The sun climbed higher over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the sprawling Voss estate, a fortress of manicured hedges and iron gates that screamed old money and newer secrets. Ethan eased his Harley to a stop at the tree line, half a mile out, the engine's rumble fading into the rustle of leaves. He killed the ignition, the sudden silence amplifying the distant hum of lawn mowers and the faint clatter of dishes from the main house. Binoculars in hand, he scanned the grounds, Olivia's domain by day, where she polished the veneer of wealth, while Voss's empire loomed like a storm cloud. The black sedan from earlier was gone, but 2 guards patrolled the perimeter, their postures tense, walkie-talkies crackling with unspoken alerts. Ethan's boot sank into the soft earth as he dismounted, slinging the binoculars over his shoulder. He'd come alone, instinct guiding him here before the crew's leads panned out. Olivia's face from the gala haunted him. Not just her quiet strength, but the flicker of fear beneath it, a mirror to Lena's own silenced pleas years ago. He moved like a shadow through the underbrush, the scent of damp soil and blooming jasmine grounding him. At the estate's edge, a service path snaked toward the servants' entrance, overgrown and forgotten, much like the lives it served. He crouched behind a stone wall, watching as Olivia emerged from the back door, her arms laden with a basket of linens, her simple uniform a far cry from the gown of last night. She paused, wiping sweat from her brow, her eyes darting toward the main house, where Voss's voice boomed from an open window, berating a supplier over the phone, his tone laced with the casual cruelty of a man who owned everything but mercy. Olivia's shoulders sagged under the load, but there was a new set to her jaw, a spark ignited by Ethan's stand. She didn't notice him at first, but as she turned toward the laundry shed, her gaze caught the glint of sunlight on his ring. She froze, basket tipping slightly, then set it down with deliberate care. "You!" she whispered, stepping closer, her voice a mix of wariness and wonder. "What are you doing here? If they see you—" Ethan rose slowly, hands visible to show no threat, his leather jacket creaking softly. "Checking on you. Last night wasn't just a dance. Voss is kind. They don't forget slights." He glanced at the house where a curtain twitched, heard whispers. "You safe." Olivia's laugh was bitter, short as a snapped thread. She crossed her arms, the faint scent of bleach clinging to her skin. "Safe? In this town? I clean up after his messes, literal and otherwise. Last year, after the mill shut, folks like me got the boot, families scattered. I stayed because, well, bills don't pay themselves." Her eyes softened, tracing the lines of his face. "But you, kneeling like that? No one's ever? Why risk it for someone like me?" He met her gaze, the weight of old oaths steadying him. Someone like you is exactly why. Made a promise once to my sister. She fought the same shadows, Voss's shadows. Didn't end well, but vows don't fade with time. They pull you back. The words hung between them, raw as exposed wire, the air thick with unspoken grief. Olivia nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes, a bridge forming in the space of shared silence. Before she could respond, a sharp crackle cut the air. Jax's voice over Ethan's radio earpiece patched in from the barn. "Brother, we got something. Maria cracked an old contact at the mill archives. Voss's company fudged reports, safety violations buried under bribes, tied to that closure. And get this, Lena's complaint file. It mentions a witness, silenced quick. Points back to the estate. You seeing anything?" Ethan's hand brushed his ear, keeping his voice low. "Eyes on target, guards up, hang tight." He relayed a quick sit-rep to Olivia, who paled, her hand flying to her mouth. I found papers once in his study, folders with names, mill workers, eviction notices. Thought it was just business, but there was one about a woman like me, said she disappeared after asking questions. The revelation hit like gravel under tires, churning Ethan's gut. Lena's echo, clearer now. "Show me, if we can get proof." But movement at the house interrupted, Voss himself striding out with two suited men, his face thunderous from the gala's fallout. He barked orders, pointing toward the service path, as if sensing the intrusion. Olivia grabbed Ethan's arm, urgency in her whisper. "Go! Through the woods. I'll stall them. Say I saw a deer." Ethan hesitated, the protector in him warring with the need to trust. "Not alone. Meet us at the old bridge tonight after shift. We'll talk real." He squeezed her hand briefly, the same one he'd held in the waltz, then melted back into the trees, boots silent on the leaf litter. Heart pounding, he circled wide, emerging at his bike just as Voss's men fanned out, flashlights sweeping the undergrowth like searchlights in a noir film. Back on the highway, wind whipping his face, Ethan radioed the crew. "It's deeper. Olivia's got leads, papers, names. Voss is spooked. He's hunting now." Jax's response crackled through. "Copy. Lucas hit pay dirt with her ex-worker. Says Voss threatened kids' futures to keep mouths shut. We're rallying more. Quiet rides into town. No storming gates, but we build the case. For the vow." The engine's roar swallowed his reply, but resolve burned hot as exhaust. By midday, Ethan rendezvoused with Maria at a roadside diner, the kind with sticky counters and coffee that tasted like regret. She slid a folder across the booth, her mechanic's hands stained with ink now, not oil. Digital scans from the archives, Voss's shell company, pushed toxins into the water table, blamed it on wear and tear. Families sick, homes seized, Lena's name's in the margins. She flagged it first. Ethan flipped through, the yellowed pages blurring with fury, close-ups in his mind. Lena's handwriting, looping pleas for justice, crossed out by bureaucratic red. This breaks him, but we need Olivia's piece, the estate docs. If Voss connects her to us... Maria nodded, her eyes steely. Then we shield her. Like family, Iron Vow doesn't leave one behind. As the sun dipped toward afternoon, casting the diner in golden haze, Ethan's phone lit up, an anonymous text. "Eyes on the Maid, back off or she joins the forgotten." Voss's warning, veiled as a shadow. Ethan's fist clenched around the device, the ring's emblem pressing into his palm, the storm brewed, ethical lines blurring into moral fire. Tonight, at the bridge, threads would tangle, loyalty tested, secrets unearthed. Olivia wasn't just a witness, she was the spark, pulling Ethan deeper into redemption's ride. The highway stretched ahead, promising clashes not of fists, but of truths long buried, where honor knelt not once, but eternally. The old bridge over Willow Creek arched like a forgotten sentinel, its rusted iron beams groaning under the weight of evening shadows. The river below rushed with a low, insistent murmur, carrying leaves and secrets downstream in the fading light. Ethan arrived first, his Harley idling softly before he cut the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the chirp of crickets and the distant hum of town life. He leaned against the weathered railing, the folder from Maria tucked under his arm, its edges frayed like the nerves coiling in his chest. The threatening text burned in his memory, Voss's reach extending like invisible chains, pulling at the edges of his resolve. But vows weren't broken by shadows, they were forged in them. Twilight painted the sky in deep indigos, the air thick with the scent of wet stone and wild mint. Olivia appeared on foot, her steps hesitant along the gravel path, a worn backpack slung over one shoulder. She'd changed out of her uniform into jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose and catching the last rays like threads of gold. She scanned the tree line, spotting him, and quickened her pace, relief flickering across her face before caution tempered it. "You came," she said, stopping a few feet away, her breath visible in the cooling air. "I wasn't sure. After today." Voss was raging, fired 2 groundskeepers, said they were disloyal after the gala whispers reached him. Ethan pushed off the railing, his boots scraping the gravel. "He preys on fear. That's his power. But you're not alone in it anymore." He gestured to a flat rock by the water's edge, and they sat, the river's rhythm a steady underscore to their words. Olivia unzipped her backpack, pulling out a small bundle wrapped in cloth, stolen glimpses from Voss's study, photocopies she'd risked making on the sly. "These. I didn't know what they meant until now. Names, dates, mill workers marked resolved. But I heard the stories. Families vanishing, homes boarded up overnight." He spread the papers between them, the dim light from his phone illuminating faded ink and scrawled notes. Ethan's finger traced a line, Lena's name, circled in red, linked to a payout record that screamed hush money. The pieces clicked like gears in an old engine. Voss's company, not just closing the mill for profit, but covering leaks of contaminants that poisoned wells, silenced complaints with threats to livelihoods. Olivia's hand hovered near his, steadying as she pointed. "This one, a woman named Clara. She cleaned for Voss years back like me, filed a report on unsafe storage, chemicals seeping. Next week, gone. No forwarding address, just nothing." The confession hung heavy, the bridge's creak echoing Ethan's tightening jaw. Memories flooded him, Lena's final call, voice trembling over the line, warning of Voss's men tailing her after she rallied the workers. "She was my sister," he said quietly, the words rough as gravel. "Fought the same fight. They called it an accident. Car off the road, brakes failed. But I know better. The iron vow was born from that loss, a promise to riders like us, stand for the silenced, no matter the cost." His eyes met hers, raw with the weight of years. "You carrying these? It's brave, but dangerous. Voss smells weakness like blood in the water." Olivia pulled back slightly, the river's chill seeping through her sweater. "Brave? Or stupid? I stayed quiet because who listens to the help? But last night you knelt made me seen. Now I can't unsee it, the rot behind the polish." She glanced upstream, where headlights flickered on the distant road, too far to identify but close enough to spike her pulse. What if they come for me? My aunt's place, the laundromat. It's all I have. Before Ethan could answer, the low growl of engines approached. Not from the road, but weaving through the back trails. Jax and Maria pulled up on their bikes, cutting the lights to roll silently onto the bridge's approach. Lucas followed on a beat-up cruiser, his bulk dismounting with a thud that scattered pebbles into the water. They formed a loose circle, nods exchanged like silent oaths, the group's presence a shield against the encroaching dark. Jax tipped his head to Olivia, respect in his gaze. "Heard you're holding fire. Good. We need it." Maria knelt by the papers, her flashlight beam cutting sharp angles. These match what we dug up. Voss's shell, Vanguard properties, funneled bribes to inspectors. Mill toxins? They knew. Let it spread to cut corners. Families got sick, kids too. Lena's report was the first crack. They sealed it with fear. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held the fire of her own loss. Her brother, a mill hand, taken by the same invisible poison. The group leaned in, the air humming with shared purpose, the river's flow a metaphor for truths rushing to the surface. Ethan stood, pacing the bridge's length, the iron vibrating under his steps. We expose it clean. No raids, no chaos. Petitions to the town council. Anonymous tips to real journalists. Olivia's docs plus the archives. It's ironclad. But doubt flickered. Voss's text echoed, a psychological jab at his core. What if the system, rotten to the roots, swallowed the truth again? Jax caught his eye, reading the storm. Brother, the vow's not about winning easy. It's about riding through. For Tommy, for Lena, for her. He nodded to Olivia, who rose, chin lifted. A sudden rustle from the woods snapped them alert. Branches snapping, a flashlight beam slicing erratic through the trees. Voss's men, or just a deer? Tensions coiled like springs. Ethan signaled quiet, hand on Olivia's shoulder, guiding her behind the riders. Stay close. The beam swung wild, voices murmuring low. Two figures, stumbling drunk from a nearby bar, laughing off-key as they relieved themselves by the bank. False alarm, but the adrenaline lingered, sharpening their bond. As the interlopers faded, the group regrouped, plans solidifying in hushed tones. Olivia would slip more evidence if safe. The vow would amplify it from the shadows, rallies at the diner, flyers in quiet corners. Ethan watched her. The maid no longer a shadow, but a partner in the moral fray. This changes everything, he said. The bridge lights from town, twinkling like distant stars. But together, we honor the forgotten. The engines stirred as they prepared to scatter, the night deepening around them. Yet, in Ethan's pocket, another buzz, a call from an unknown number, Voss's voice perhaps, or a deeper threat uncoiling. The ride ahead twisted with ethical knots, loyalty's test burning brighter than any headlight. Redemption wasn't a destination, it was the road they claimed, one vow at a time. If this tale of quiet courage stirs something in you, hit that like button below. It helps spread these stories of honor to more corners of the world. The moon hung low over Willow Creek, a silver sickle slicing through the veil of clouds, casting ethereal glows on the old bridge's iron lattice. Ethan Caldwell felt the vibration of his phone in his pocket like a warning pulse. The unknown call, unanswered for now, its shadow lingering as the Iron Vow riders dispersed into the night. Engines faded one by one, swallowed by the winding back roads, leaving only the river's ceaseless whisper and Olivia's steady breathing beside him. She clutched the backpack tighter, the weight of the documents inside a tangible anchor to the fragile alliance forming under the stars. Ethan's hand rested on the railing, calluses rough against the cold metal, his mind racing through the ethical maze ahead. Expose Voss without becoming the monsters they fought, honor the vow without spilling blood that couldn't be washed clean. They walked together along the gravel path, away from the bridge, the crunch underfoot sinking with their unspoken thoughts. Olivia's sweater caught the night's chill, and she rubbed her arms, glancing up at him. That call, who do you think? Her voice was soft, threaded with the day's exhaustion, but laced with a newfound steel, the maid's deference giving way to a partner's resolve. Ethan shook his head, the wind tugging at his tied-back hair. Voss, testing waters, or someone deeper in his web, doesn't matter yet. What matters is you getting clear of the estate tomorrow. Call in sick, stay low, we'll handle the push. He stopped at the path's fork, where her apartment trail branched left. his Harley a dark silhouette waiting in the shadows. The scent of pine and damp earth enveloped them, a brief sanctuary before the storm's inevitable pull. Olivia hesitated, her eyes searching his face in the moonlight, tracing the faint scar along his jaw, a remnant from a roadside skirmish years back when the vow first clashed with corruption's edges. "And if they come for me first, Voss doesn't bluff. I saw it in his eyes today, calculating like I'm a loose thread to snip." She stepped closer, the warmth of her presence cutting through the cold, a quiet plea in her stance. He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm yet gentle, the gesture echoing the kneel from the gala, a promise renewed. "Then we ride. The vow's your shield now. Jax is posting watch on your block. Maria's rigging a safe line if things heat." Words weren't enough, he knew that. The vow bound him to action, to the silent sacrifices that built unbreakable loyalty. As she nodded, turning toward home, Ethan watched her silhouette fade, the river's murmur fading into resolve. He mounted his bike, the engine's low growl of vows echo, and rode toward the barn, where the crew would regroup under dawn's first light. By morning, the old barn stood bathed in golden haze, its doors ajar like welcoming arms. Smoke curled from the fire pit, where Jax stoked embers with a poker, his prosthetic leg extended toward the warmth. Maria hunched over a laptop on a splintered crate, her fingers flying across keys, pulling threads from digital archives that Voss's money couldn't fully bury. Lucas paced the perimeter, his broad frame casting long shadows, a thermos of bitter coffee in hand. The air smelled of charred wood and motor oil, a familiar balm against the encroaching threat. Ethan dismounted, boots thudding into the dirt, and joined them without preamble. Olivia's docs seal it. Clara's file, the payouts, ties straight to Lena's crash. He tossed the bundle onto the crate, pages whispering as they settled. Jax looked up, his stubble-shadowed face etched with the night's vigil. Pulled an all-nighter tracing Vanguard's shell, offshore accounts laundered through fake charities, Voss's gala philanthropy, cover for skimming worker relief funds post-mill closure. Maria spun the laptop toward him, screen glowing with spreadsheets and blurred photos, yellowed reports of contaminated soil tests, family's medical bills stamped denied. "Look here," she said, voice low and urgent, tapping her entry. Lena's signature on a petition, dated weeks before her accident. Voss's assistant initialed the rejection. And get this, Olivia's aunt? She was on the list too. Eviction threat lifted after cooperation. The revelation hung like smoke, thickening the air, each rider feeling the moral weight press heavier. Lucas stopped pacing, his voice a rumble. Cooperation meaning silence. My cousin's widow still coughs up nights from that dust. We drop this on the council. Voss twists it, calls us vigilantes, smears the vow as troublemakers. He spat into the dirt, the fire crackling in agreement, sparks rising like fleeting hopes. Ethan leaned against a beam, arms crossed, the silver ring glinting as he considered. The dilemmacy clawed at him. Justice demanded exposure, but redemption required precision, honoring the overlooked without dragging innocence into the fray. We go public smart, no lone wolves. Rally the old mill families first. Quiet meet at the diner tonight. Olivia brings her piece. We build the chorus. Then to the press. A real one, not Voss's puppets. His words carried the gravel of conviction, eyes scanning his makeshift family, bonds forged in loss, now tightening against the tide. The morning stretched into planning, maps unrolled on the barn floor, routes sketched for safe drops and lookout posts. Jax's radio crackled sporadically, scouts reporting Voss's men circling town, sedans prowling like sharks scenting blood. Ethan's phone buzzed again, the unknown number flashing. He answered this time, speaker on mute, Voss's oily voice slithering through. "That maid's playing with fire, Caldwell. Walk away, or the vow's pretty oaths turn to ash." The line died, leaving silence thicker than fog. Rage simmered, But Ethan channeled it, the vow a steady flame. He's scared. Means we're close. The crew nodded, rising as one, bikes firing up in a symphony of defiance. They split again, Maria to encrypt the files, Lucas to gather witnesses, Jax shadowing Olivia. Ethan rode solo toward the diner, the highway's hum vibrating through him, wind whipping away doubts. Sunlight dappled the asphalt, but shadows loomed in his periphery, Voss's reach testing every turn. By midday, the diner buzzed with subdued energy, its checkered floors worn from years of confessions over pie. Olivia slipped in through the back, hood up, sliding into a booth where Ethan waited, a pot of coffee steaming between them. Her eyes were shadowed, but determined, a fresh photocopy clutched in her fist. From the study this morning, before I called out, Voss on a call, raging about rats in the walls. This is it, ledger showing bribes to the sheriff's office, covering the crash investigation. She pushed it across, hands trembling slightly, the scent of fresh ink mingling with greasy fries. Ethan scanned it, heart pounding like an engine at redline. Lena's death no accident, brakes tampered, reports buried. The moral cliff sharpened. This wasn't just corruption, it was blood on ledgers. You risked everything. He covered her hand with his, the touch grounding, a silent oath exchanged. Outside, engines rumbled, Jax and the others arriving, a convoy of quiet guardians pulling into the lot. As families trickled in, worn faces from the mill days, eyes hollow from lost homes, the booth became command central. Whispers built to resolve, stories overlapping like puzzle pieces, poisoned wells, silenced pleas, Voss's empire built on broken backs. Olivia spoke last, voice steady, the maid transformed into storyteller of truths. He thought us invisible, but we're the foundation he can't erase. The meeting swelled, the diner's windows fogging with shared breath, tension coiling like a spring. Ethan stood at the counter, addressing them not as leader, but brother, the vow's emblem catching light. We ride together, not for revenge, but redemption, for the forgotten, the knelt for. Tonight we copy these, spread them wide. By dawn, the town's eyes open. But as the group dispersed into the afternoon haze, a black sedan idled across the street, tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. Voss's noose tightened, psychological barbs turning physical. Ethan's radio buzzed, Maria's voice edged with alarm. They're moving on the aunt's place. Jax is en route, but hurry. The coffee pot clattered as he bolted. Olivia at his side, the door chime a harbinger. The highway called once more, loyalty's engine roaring to life, hurtling toward confrontation's edge. Promises didn't kneel. They charged, weaving redemption through the gathering storm, where honor faced its fiercest test. The highway blurred into a frenzy of asphalt and adrenaline, Ethan's Harley surging ahead with Olivia clinging to his back, her arms locked tight around his waist. The wind howled past, carrying the sharp tang of exhaust and wild grasses, whipping her hair like banners of defiance. Jax's voice crackled over the radio, urgent but controlled. They're circling the block. 2 sedans, no plates. Aunt's inside, door barricaded. I'm pulling up now. Ethan's jaw set, the engine's roar mirroring the storm in his chest, vows colliding with the raw edge of protection. This wasn't a brawl, it was the line where loyalty met the abyss, where forgotten promises demanded reckoning. They crested the hill overlooking the laundromat district, a cluster of faded brick buildings huddled against the town's frayed underbelly. Smoke trailed from a distant chimney, the air heavy with the metallic bite of industrial wash and simmering fear. The aunt's place, a squat apartment above the spinning dryers, glowed faintly through drawn curtains, a beacon in the late afternoon haze. Black sedans idled like predators at the curb, suited figures leaning against hoods, their postures coiled with false casualness. Ethan downshifted, the bike's growl announcing them as he swung into the alley, Olivia dismounting with a gasp, her eyes wide on the scene. "Stay back," Ethan murmured, his hand brushing hers in a fleeting anchor, the silver ring cool against her skin. But she shook her head, stepping forward, the spark from the bridge now a steady flame. Jax's chopper rumbled up from the side street, followed by Maria and Lucas, their arrivals a synchronized thunder that froze the suits in place. No weapons drawn, just presence, a wall of leather and resolve, engines ticking like heartbeats in the standoff. The aunt's door creaked open a sliver, her lined face peering out, voice trembling through the gap. "Olivia, what's happening? They pounded, demanding papers. Said it's about rent, but their eyes." Voss's men straightened, one barking into a phone, the other's hand twitching toward a concealed bulge at his hip. "This is private property. Clear out, or we call the law." His tone dripped with bought authority, the sheriff's shadow looming in every threat. Ethan stepped forward, boots grinding gravel, his voice low and unyielding, carrying the weight of foxholes and graveside oaths. "Law? The one Voss owns? We're here for truth, not trouble. Tell your boss the game's over. Ledgers, bribes, buried reports. The town's waking up." Tension crackled like static before a storm, the air thick with the hum of idling cars and the faint spin of laundromat drums below. Olivia moved to her aunt's side, helping the older woman inside, her whisper fierce. "It's okay, Aunt Rose. We're family now, the kind that rides through." The words hung, weaving her into the vow's tapestry, chosen bonds stronger than blood. Jax flanked Ethan, prosthetic leg planted firm, his gaze locking the lead suit. "We got witnesses, files, mill families, the works. Drop the act. Voss can't buy silence forever." A beat stretched, eternal as a held breath, the sun dipping low to gild the scene in amber resolve. The phone-barking man paused, receiver trembling slightly, then muttered orders before the sedans peeled away in a spray of dust. Tires screeching like retreating wolves. No shots, no fists, just the erosion of fear under the light of exposure. Ethan exhaled, the crew exchanging nods, the moral victory settling like dust after a long ride. Maria pulled out her phone, already uploading encrypted scans to a secure drop. "Council gets this by nightfall. Press 2. Voss's empire crumbles on paper, not blood." Inside the cramped apartment, the air smelled of lavender soap and fresh bread, a humble hearth against the chaos. Aunt Rose brewed tea with shaking hands, her eyes softening as stories unfolded around the scarred kitchen table. The vow's origins in Lena's loss, Olivia's stolen glimpses of rot, the mill's poisoned legacy. Ethan sat at the head, not as commander but guardian, his ring tapping rhythmically against the mug. "This ends it," he said, voice steady as the river they'd bridged. "No more shadows. Voss faces the light, trials, audits, the truth he buried with Clara, with Lena." Olivia met his gaze across the steam, her hand finding his under the table, a quiet seal on the night's kneel. Tears traced her cheeks, not of weakness but release, the overlooked rising as the foundation of justice. The crew lingered, laughter breaking through eventually, Jax's dry quips about fancy suits running from grease monkeys, Maria's plans for a community fund from seized assets. Family chosen, not born, their loyalty a web of unbreakable chains, honoring sacrifices with actions that echoed louder than engines. By dusk, word spread like wildfire through Willow Creek's veins. The diner packed with mill families, flyers circulating under street lamps. A real journalist's van parked outside the council hall. Voss's name trended in hushed tones, his gala facade shattering under the weight of petitions and proof. Ethan rode out last, Olivia beside him on a borrowed bike, the wind carrying scents of freedom and fresh starts. The highway stretched infinite, but the vow felt complete. Redemption, not in vengeance, but in standing tall for the knelt for, promises fulfilled in the quiet roar of integrity. Dawn broke clear over the town, the manor gates flung wide to reporters' flashes, Voss's empire unraveling thread by thread. Ethan watched from afar, Jax at his side, the barn, a distant memory, now alive with purpose. Olivia, no longer the maid in shadows, walked among the rallied, her voice joining the chorus of the once forgotten. The iron vow rode on, not as outlaws, but as keepers of moral fire, lealdad inconditional, justicia poetica, where one hand extended changed the horizon forever. If this journey of honor and quiet strength has touched your path, thank you for riding along. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll keep these tales of redemption rolling your way, one promise at a time.